When a member goes to another church, don't talk to him anymore. When a member leaves a church, don't talk to him anymore. So they put you in this bubble, and you lose everything. You lose your community, and they suck you in even more with these arranged marriages. And I think that's why they try to put us in arranged marriages, because if you have one faithful person in the church, they're supposed to kind of ground you. And then when you start to doubt, it's like, wow, now I might lose my wife. Because we've heard stories, and we've all seen it ourselves, how many marriages have separated in the World Messiah Church of Fraud. And both me and Anthony here, we were both in an arranged marriage to a Korean. And both of us don't have a wife anymore. We have a life, but we don't have a wife. Sorry. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to Cult Audit. My name is Mitch Kunico, and I'm a former assistant overseer of the World Mission Society Church of God. Church of God. It's always a Freudian slip with that one. But I'm here with my buddy Anthony. He's also a former member of the World Mission Society Church of God. And today we're just going to have a dialogue about a lot of different things that maybe happened to us in the group and things that we saw and tactics we've seen in the World Mission Society Church of God. So I'm going to kick it off to my buddy Anthony here to introduce himself and kind of explain his story a little bit.
Hello. I think a lot of people who might be researching the church may have come across some of my videos already. Great Light Studios, Playing in Traffic, where you got to get back to it. I haven't heard an episode for a while.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting.
And then I've been speaking out a little bit. I'm a former member. I joined the church in 2011 in July, and I left in December of 2021. So like 10 and a half years in the church. I was baptized originally in New York, in Queens. I was transferred into Manhattan, and I was there for a while. I helped open up the Tampa location when that was a house church and the first house church down there. And I went back to New York for a while, then out to Pittsburgh, where I was then moved into Baltimore to be a house church leader. And then I kind of concluded with a brief stint in Virginia when I finally escaped. During my time in the church, I'd say about, maybe a year and 2 months or so, the pastor spoke to me and suggested I, get into an arranged marriage with, he suggested this Korean member, and I did. I did go through with that, and that was part of the, I think, the ramp up and the hyper speed for me to move to Tampa and do all these other things. Eventually, I was not just a house church leader. I was also given baptism authority and the title of deacon. And now, after some time, I think really like a lot of bad happened with COVID, but in a lot of ways for me personally, a lot of good happened with COVID as well, because, it gave us a little bit more free time, a little bit more independence. And the more I looked into the church's, like not just like the church's history, but actually history that happened in history books and what the church says occurred and what actually happened, and the documents that they give us to look at. And when you look at who wrote the book that they gave to us as evidence of history, I started to see more and more that the church was manipulating history, manipulating things, and us, ultimately us. And the more I started to notice that, the more that I allowed myself, because there were things that didn't make sense before, that when I would see in their doctrine, it didn't sit right, but I would kind of thought stop that, where it's like, one day you'll understand, Anthony. Like, don't, how dare you question God? Like, don't even allow yourself to think like that. You must be wrong somehow. Like, I wouldn't even trust myself to think about things, so I would thought stop. But once I started to see that, like, wow, like, they're lying clearly about history, it allowed me to also see that other things didn't make sense when I investigated it a little bit further. And I didn't stop myself from doing a little bit more research, and not always looking at the church from the perspective that they are always right and everything else is wrong. Like, if there's ever a contradiction, it's like I would always like look out a bias to prove the church right. And I would thought stop anything that proved them wrong. Like, nope, it can't possibly be. But, I think noticing like their flaws and accepting them allowed me to realize more of their flaws. Anyway, it was sort of a slippery slope where I started to do more and more research, do more studies about what cults look like. I wasn't looking into ex-member testimonies, but I was looking into ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Mormons. I started to look into the doctrine of Shincheonji. I started to speak to like rabbis so I could better understand the Old Testament and the law and the feasts from their perspective. I started to do like a lot of my own independent research, and started to realize, wow, like there's a lot of problems with this doctrine. They always say, oh, they can talk about our character, they could talk about you know these superficial, non-important things, but they can never talk about our doctrine. And when I realized, actually, like, the doctrine is very flawed, there's a lot of problems with it, and things don't always add up. I it was it took me a long time to trust myself enough to leave. I'd say I was in the church for a good whole year before I worked up the nerve to leave. And that was because part of it was fear, fear that even with all the like mountain of evidence that I had that the church was wrong, I was still scared that, like, what if there was something I didn't consider? What if, like, because you will throw away 10 years of your life to walk away now. You will, potentially spend eternity in hell, like they told me I would, if I walked away then. Not only that, leaving the church would ultimately mean my whole life would change. All my friends that I had in my life before, gone. Little by little, like, being involved with the church and having it consume, you have all connection outside just, disappear. And then all of my friends, like my really good, like, close people I care about and my community, it's the church and members of the church. So if I leave, or even question out loud the church, those relationships would crumble, and if I left the church, they would be non-existent. And then also my home life, I'm married through the church, for the church. And as much as I can tell you, like, in my heart, I really did grow like a very strong love for my wife. It was ultimately eclipsed by the love we had for the church. Like, we were both really, ultimately, at the end of the day, doing it because this was for the church's benefit, and they find pairing people to be beneficial for their process. So that I knew would not be able to survive either. So a year of torture, a year of you know uh I'd say rapid weight gain. I'd say a year of um, just, faking it. A year of having the new songs harder and harder to sing because I knew that they were just stupid and nonsense, and I could finally admit they suck. They're awful.
Yeah.
Maybe two I like, but
I like the oldies. I would always sing 400s.
yeah,
The
no,
400s,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm
especially
saying,
when I was leaving, because I was like, well, these aren't like saying Ansang Hong or Mother God or
well,
whatever. A lot of the 400s, and I thought they sounded better anyways. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of them did. There was what was a God gives his light. That was kind of cool because it would be like, you know, there was a part of the brothers would sing and the sisters would sing.
gun,
Today
gun,
left
gun, gun, gun,
today.
gun.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah, that was fun. But anyway, like everything would change if I left, and I was scared, and like I was having like just like this anxiety. I developed almost like claustrophobia. Like I would sometimes like even just
oh,
like under a blanket, I'd feel like I was trapped. I just felt like I don't know. It was a lot of stress. It was a lot of stress on me, and ultimately, thankfully, I started to study a little bit more about Shincheonji and the Moonies, and see that like this doctrine. I thought, wow, who else but God could do something like this? They're exactly the same. Exactly the
yeah,
same. Like, it's just
so
like,
similar.
they copy each other. They have the same sort of style of one day steal from one another, the way that they build their doctrines and build their cults. So seeing that, and then also I think I started to watch more things from like Mike Winger, who was like really helpful. Like his
Yeah,
anti-WMSCOG video, I watched that one, and they got me into his teachings about typology, which for me made a lot more sense. Especially, he had a series about the feasts, and when his understanding of the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement makes sense. It actually makes sense.
yeah,
Like comparatively to these two feasts were fulfilled by the great disappointment. Like,
yep.
the Wimstock
1844,
doctrine, like their
18. Yeah,
fulfillment in this age is like so stupid. You know what I mean? Like,
it is.
anyway, I just throwing out some stuff because the can of worms is open, but ultimately, thank God, I was able to see that it was a false church, and that I made the right choice to leave. It wasn't easy. It was not easy. Um, I thankfully had uh, people waiting a decade who would be there for me afterward. And I just started to talk. I just felt like that was for me, the way to get everything out and to feel better and to understand kind of what had happened. Um, I, started talking on my Facebook, and, even when I ended up going to my 20-year high school reunion, and people I didn't even know who the hell they were coming up to me like, you're so, I follow you on Facebook, and oh my gosh, I love so much. Like, you're so brave to explain all this stuff. And then it's so like, and then it's just been like, it's been good to be able to just to communicate. I don't even know who hears it. I don't know who gets helped from it, but it's been a great process. So any ex-member, it's like a relief. We weren't able to talk for so long, so
Yeah.
having the ability now to really say how we actually feel, and not just like put a smile on our face, and thank Father, Mother, thank Father, for
Exactly. Yeah.
everything. It's just it's been great. But again, it was hard losing all my friends, and also coming to the realization that the marriage would also end. We tried for a very brief moment to, you know, see if that would be something that could be salvaged. And I realized very quick, um, it it couldn't it couldn't be. I couldn't leave
Yeah.
the church and be with her. Like there was no way I would leave the church if I were still with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know what you mean exactly, and I'm glad for everything you shared. And there's a lot of points, like, quickly I'd like to point out, and because I feel like we went through a lot of similar things leaving the group. It's not just like get up and leave when you don't believe this anymore. It's like your mind's in its own prison, and you're there for like a year, just scrambling and unpuzzling this thing that you've been sucked into in this belief system. And the way this cult works, it's pretty smart, because once you already separate them from family and friends as much as you can, when they put you into an arranged marriage and you've been in the church so long, and you're at the church every day, you're preaching, you've created a tribal personality. And this is your tribe now. These are my new friends. And now I'm in this arranged marriage. Then when you start to doubt, it's like, oh my gosh, I already kind of got rid of all my old friends. Like, I don't talk to them. And if I leave this church, I already know they can't talk to me, because the church puts us in this bubble of information control. And there's other text messages out there and group chat messages, so on and so forth, of leaders saying, when a member goes to another church, don't talk to him anymore. When a member leaves the church, don't talk to him anymore. So they put you in this bubble, and you lose everything. You lose your community, and they suck you in even more with these arranged marriages. And I think that's why they try to put us in arranged marriages, because if you have one faithful person in the church, they're supposed to kind of ground you. And then when you start to doubt, it's like, wow, now I might lose my wife, because we've heard stories, and we've all seen it ourselves. How many marriages have separated in the World Messiah Church of
mhm.
Fraud? Um, and both me and Anthony here, we were both in an arranged marriage to a Korean, and both of us don't have a wife anymore. Not a lot. We have a life, but we don't have a wife. Sorry, came off a little weird there, but yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think the arranged marriage part, they deny it. They deny it all the time that they don't arrange marriages, but they do.
Yeah, they do.
Especially, they for sure do. So, Anthony, I'll tell my a little bit of my experiences with the arranged marriage. Could you share a little about your arranged marriages? And I know you got something to share, some text messages, so we can actually prove it to people, and the church, because the church will spread lies to members. And hopefully, if there is a member watching, you can see we have the evidence. We're firsthand witnesses. This isn't something we'd lie about. I mean, it's kind of, in some sense, it's sad. It's humiliating. It's not easy to talk about, to say you got into an arranged marriage to a Korean and you separated. We have no reason to lie about this. So if you want to go into that a little bit, Anthony.
Yeah. So, I mean, one other point I think that is important to mention regarding the um, benefits to the church for arranging couples is that now you have a spy at home, or you're the spy at home.
Ooh,
Depending.
ooh, yeah,
It's
that's a good point. Oh my gosh, yeah.
it's if you're a single person, like who knows if you're not praying at prayer time? Who knows if you're watching TV all night and violent movies or whatever the case might be, right? So if you're listening to worldly music, who knows exactly besides the your WMSCOG spy right there in your bed. So it's definitely a benefit for them to have somebody there with you. But for me, my arranged marriage, I remember I had just become team leader. I was in the church for just like over a year, and the pastor Daniel Lee was coming to visit in New York City. I was what they called First Manhattan, which was right by Bryant Park, Midtown, and we had the VIP room. So there were different study rooms, but the last study room was like more fancy than the others, and
Mm-hmm.
had like a nice window. And so, like, of course he would choose that space to camp out in when he'd come to visit, and sprawl out. And it kind of felt, I remember the first time I ever met him, it felt like um they treated him like he was God. And for I feel like cult leaders, there's a lot of parallels between narcissistic personality disorder,
Yeah.
and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
people with that kind of thrive in this sort of environment. So the fact that he can walk with his hands behind his back and his head held high, and his
He's a
little
little
frame,
leprechaun,
just like,
full of money,
yeah,
and small.
right right over to the the VIP room, and get a separate special dinner prepared for just him. And anyway, when he'd come to visit, like, everything he said, all of the members, wow. Like, I remember, like, I was like brand new, like I was probably in the church like a week at this point, and he sat down. This is back in Queens. He sat down on the couch out in the main foyer area, and all the members just stood around him. And I remember the deacon who was caretaking for me, kind of like watching over me, was standing beside me, and he's like, "Oh, the pastor's coming today. The pastor's coming today." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I meet him, and I'm just standing there, and like, just looking at all these people look at this man with awe. And he would say one sentence, like every sentence was, "Wow, wow." And I'm just standing there looking at the people, and I turned to him, to the deacon. I'm like, "You want to go get some coffee?" And it's just like, it escaped me. But eventually I kind of got into that same like mindset, the same sort of like, this is the prophet. This is the one that God sent to us. And anyway, so when I went into the room with him to, tell him, "Oh, I was just given the blessing to be a team leader. I wanted to talk to you and get your advice. Like, how can I help, guide, God's children? And, what should, what should I do?" And he just kind of looked at me, and he was like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "Pastor, I just turned one." You know, he's like,
Yeah.
and you could
Yeah.
tell like he didn't really like that like hyper spiritual answer, but he's
Stop
like,
stop
"No."
being so spiritual, brother.
Yeah. And
I'm
he
a
was just like,
businessman. I'm here for the money.
yeah. I was like, "Oh, I just turned 26, or something like that." And he's like, "You should be thinking about family." He's like, um, I'm like, "Family?" He's like, "Yeah, why don't you get married? What about your branch?" Because it was two people who stopped me. One of them was the Korean sister. So I look at him like, because for me, like, I
This is
kind
new.
of heard something about arranged marriages. I kind of heard that the church would organize things like that. But one, I didn't expect it to happen so fast. And two, I wasn't even sure. I'm like, do I act like, it's a surprise, or do I act like I already know what's going on? So I'm confused by the whole thing. He sees I'm confused, and he's like, "Why? Do you like somebody else?" And I'm just thinking like, um, you know, what what the hell's going on here? And I'm like,
Strange
I don't know what
questions.
the right answer is, because one of the things is like in cults, and you never know. Like, they always change what's the right answer. They always keep you on your toes about, because sometimes somebody might do something that's praised or condemned. It could be the same action. You never really know what their right thing to do is. So
That's
for
true.
me, I didn't know what to say. So I just said, "Pastor, no, excuse me, but we actively don't think about those things. So I haven't really considered it. It's the first time I'm hearing this. Like, okay, why don't you just think about it and let me know?" "Okay, that sounds good." He's like, "Okay, thank you." And that's it. And I go to the deacon who ran the church, and I go up to him. He's like, "Oh, how did your conversation go?" He's like, "Oh, well, he asked, he told me I should think about family, and he asked if I wanted to get married to my branch." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, when he saw like I was confused, he said, "Do you like somebody else?" And I'm like, "Was that a trick?" I'm like, "I don't know like how to answer that." He's like, "No, no, do you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I don't know." I'm like, "Well, what's the benefit of getting married?" He's like, "Oh, you could do more for the gospel." And this, I reminding you, it's 2012 now.
Ah, not the
I'm
end of the
being
world.
told since I got in there that like I got in at the last minute, that mass media is our objective. The whole world will hear. It's going to happen like any day, and everything's about to change. And God will act swiftly. But this is the year that Father comes. This is the year that the temple is complete. So I'm looking at it at this point in time, like I don't have much time to go. If God wants me to do something, I'm gonna do it. What's what are the deal? Like 2 months of something I'm not really thinking about too much. It just didn't feel like it was going to be a big deal. It didn't feel like it was going to
Yeah.
be, because I was sure that they were telling me the truth, that the Father was coming
Sending.
very soon. So
Yep.
I was like, and I told him that he asked if I liked someone else. I'm like, it was a trick. He's like, no, like, look around, is there somebody that you want to
Go
marry?
shopping.
So he's like, what about, Deaconess Loredana? And I was like, she's mean. And I'm
She's a
like,
bully.
she, I mean, actually, she ended up being a lot nicer. She just had you know, this, I think like Eastern European kind of feel about her. And then I was like, okay, no, what about, this one? I won't name any non-title holders. And he's like, she's too immature. And I'm like, okay. And then, it was, what about, uh, that one? And, so he was only pairing me with, Korean or white. And when I pointed out a Dominican, I pointed out a Chinese, and that was it. After that, I was just like, okay, you know what? Like everybody I want, you say like she's too strong, she's too immature, she's gonna move to a different location soon. Okay, and then everyone like he pointed to him like, you know what, like I'm not into negotiations. I'll just do what pastor suggested. And I think that that's probably a good sign, if I just follow. Anyway, and that's how I got into a arranged marriage. And then, well, funny enough, she didn't know. When I saw Pastor next, it was like maybe a month later at a feast, or like around that time, and I went up to him. I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. Like, okay, give him her number. And I'm like, okay. So I get it. And I wait a day, and I message to set up like a date, because they want you to have like, maybe a week or two where you get to know the person. And some people, that was given to me. I had another brother who I had lived with. We were in a brother's dorm together. He never met his wife when they got married. Like he never even met her. They met to marry. And for me, it was okay, we went out on a date or two, but when I was messaging her, one, she didn't speak enough English that like I could have a phone call with her. Like we had no idea what the other one was saying, and then her messages, like and so she would try to make it cute, and she put like little wiggle lines and little like asterisks, and just like decorate her language. Um, and we kind of understood each other through text message, to the point where when we actually were spending a little time together, it would be like, let's message each other. So I think we went on like 2 dates, and it's like, okay, like, are we doing this? Yeah, okay, like, you know, let's just jump into it. I felt like I wanted to do it for God, for the church,
Father and
for
mother.
blessings, um and I think, for her, she said that the day she met me, like, I don't know, maybe she's just speaking romantic. She's like, the day I met you, the day like you were baptized, I said, I'm gonna marry this one. So, she had it in her mind, I think, like, early on, that like potentially I would be like, but I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what she would tell me. I don't know if it was like a sweet lie, but it was, you know, but she had no idea when I was messaging her. She's like, "Why is he messaging me?" And she showed like a deaconess she was in the same church with, and the deacon was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." So, they said for you two to, and that's how she found out that I wasn't just trying to ask her out on my own. But yeah, and then the day of the marriage, we just took a bus um, to New Jersey to meet the pastor, and he called in two random people. One was a deaconess who is no longer in the church, and one was Victor Lozado. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and he called them both
what
in.
a guy.
They were the witnesses, and there we were, and then we got a photo taken, and boom, married. A beautiful
Yeah.
marriage everyone looks
Yeah.
forward to.
Oh yeah. I'll tell a little about mine because some people that have seen my channel know I was in an arranged marriage as well, also to a Korean. And I like how you said she didn't really know, kind of until like, why is this guy texting me? He shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing that probably. Mine is similar in another way about her not knowing. Let me start from the beginning on how it came to me being arranged in a marriage. So I was in Oklahoma. I'm the only white boy, practically. I'm just being honest. That's like a faithful member there, being Caucasian. And I worked my way up into pre-theological school, and I'm about to become an assistant overseer. So I need to be married, right? So they pulled my elder Justin at that time, his wife's Quantanine, Annie. He pulls me into his office and he's like, "Yeah, I think it's time for you to get marriage, married." And then he gives me this like little piece of paper, man. How big is it? Like I have this little like cup. I think this is a good size. It's a paper around this size, and it's just like a little square of her face, the Korean, and her name, like birthday, and what Zion she's in. And he's like, "I think this one's good for you." And like, mother thinks this one's the best. So like, to me, I'm just like, okay, mother said. But I was very concerned because I'm like, well, what's her faith like? What's her family life like? Was she position holder, title? Because I'm thinking about like, I need a faithful wife, to carry out the gospel work. And
What's her
he's like, I don't
credentials?
really. Yeah, he's like, I don't really know much. Yeah, really, because this is like worse than a blind date. So, because she's not even in America, they boxed her up and shipped her out. Um, I know it's funny that I use that language. I'm a jokester, but it's like, sure, I guess if this is mother's will, then sure. And then I think like maybe 4 or 5 months later, she comes out from Korea, and I think everybody in the church already knew, because in Oklahoma, there's so many arranged marriages that already happened before, and these are like the worst kind. You know how you said some get to meet each other for amount of time before they're arranged, but
Hmm.
then you've met some people that were just like, nope, boop, you too, marry, go do gospel. In Oklahoma, before I got there, probably like 3-4 years before then, um, a lot of the members were arranged, and they were literally just brought into a room like you and you. And there's this one deacon. He's like he's shorter, and then there's an African American woman. She's a little bigger, and she's older than him by quite a bit, and she has 2 kids. He had no kids. They put them together. They're actually still together, surprisingly. I don't know how. Sorry, she
Oh,
had 3 kids. I don't know how. But that happened to a lot of the members, and most of them divorced. Most of them got divorced. So you got all these divorced couples in one church. Super awkward. So that was kind of the situation then. But it was a little different. Yeah, mine was arranged. They're like, this is what mother chose for you. Okay, so she comes. And all the members already knew what was going on. Mitch is getting married, probably. He's getting arranged. Because why is this random Korean girl here? You know, she's not on a short term. She just comes out to Oklahoma. At that time, she didn't speak much English, maybe a little better than yours at the beginning. But it was enough to I could kind of conversate a little bit with her. But yeah, we started to text, and then the overseers took us on our first date. The overseer and his wife to like a Japanese restaurant. We all, yeah, and it was so weird because they're all Korean. They're all talking in Korean to each other, like laughing. I'm just over here eating my noodles, and then they're like, and then they're just talking about like, yeah, like I think this date you guys should be married, and so on and so forth. So date and make sure you guys are fit for each other. But just know, you know, mother chose this, and so again, it's one of those things. It's like you got a choice. It's like when they say, according to your
could
faith.
you imagine that she flies all the way across the world to be there to marry you, and you're just like, what other options are there? Can you send this one back? I don't want this one.
Well, come to find out after we're together, because I had the paper still. I was like, yeah, this is what they should. This is all they gave me of you. And she's like, I didn't see a single picture of you. She didn't even see my picture before she came to America. She was told, assistant overseer, brother, Caucasian. He's handsome. I don't think I'm handsome. I'm like chubby now. Like, look what the cult did to me. Oh my goodness. I'm not that handsome anymore. Maybe if we go back like 7 years. But anyways, yeah, she didn't even know who I was. And yeah, I mean, at that point, when you think about it as well, you got a girl that's kind of grown up in the church, never had a boyfriend. And then you got a guy that's been in this church for a while, is so strict in following the church's rules. So I have no girlfriend. I don't even talk to girls. I don't look at them. And at the same time, no brothers ever wanted to live together either. So I was living by myself for like 5 years. I had nobody to go home or talk to. So finally, when I had somebody to talk to and speak about my feelings or like things that are going on, I felt very like at ease. And this is a problem. I think they, since we can't date or talk to people, even if we're not compatible, it seems compatible at the time. Because you're talking to somebody, you're interacting with somebody, and you couldn't do this for 5 years. So it seems all good and dandy. But eventually you start seeing later on after your marriage, we're not compatible at all because we only dated maybe 2 months.
Yeah. It's so difficult.
You're very
the beginning is so difficult.
It is. Yeah. You're very introverted. I'm very, I want to say all the way extroverted because I have my times as well. I like to travel, even though I couldn't, I really wanted to like still explore. She was always very timid. And yeah, that's kind of what happened and how I was put into my arranged marriage. And as we know now, just like you, divorce, saying me and my wife were like not together, right? But you brought something up earlier at the beginning of this, and you said arranged marriages, they're like a spy at home. And I wanted to mention this because Sister Esperanza did an interview pretty recently with Edgar, and in it she mentioned about the arranged marriages and how for typical arranged marriages, say me and you, Anthony, got married to like another Caucasian or like an African American or Hispanic, we would be the ones in charge of the household because we're the man of the household. However, she mentioned it's different if you're in arranged marriage to a Korean because actually we're not the ones in charge, surprisingly. That's how I felt. I saw it with any other arranged marriage, it was always a husband in charge, unless they were married to a Korean. Of course, I think it's different when you're an overseer, but at that time, my wife, whatever she says, it's the law. And even I got pulled in the office and I've been controlling my financials and bank account my whole life. I've never had problems. And they say your wife needs to take over. She needs to be in control of the money and all of this stuff. And I'm like, she just came to America. She barely speaks English, and she's supposed to control all my money. I'm like, I'm the one working too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this happens, and then you're right. Even my overseer has asked me, overseers ask the other partner, especially when you're in a higher leadership position, how's your husband? Does he do this? Does he do that? And they are little spies, and especially the Koreans. The Koreans spy on their husbands. When I began to leave the church, doubt about the church. Yeah, she was in communication with head office the whole time about me, and then they sent me to Korea. And the very day we met with Zang Gil-ja and Kim Ju-chol, they were translating everything at first in the boardroom table, but for like 15 minutes, they wouldn't translate stuff they were speaking about in Korean to my wife. And that very same night, it's like 2 a.m, and I wake up because I hear something, and my wife's in the we're in 2 separate beds when we had to go to Korea, and she's beside my bed, just like looking at me. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I was just watching you sleep." I'm like, "What? You've never done this. You've never done that." So I had a feeling I knew what she was doing. So I waited for her just like to hop back in the bed. I gave it like 2 minutes, and I checked my phone. I went to the activity level because it will tell you what apps were opened at what time and for how long. And I knew I've already been asleep for about 2 hours, and I checked it, and it said like 5 minutes ago. Facebook Messenger. 2 minutes ago, YouTube, for how long, so on and so forth. And text messages, so on and so forth, for how long. And I asked her, because she's acting like she's going back to bed. I was like, were you on my phone? Were you looking on my phone? She's like, no. And I said, you can't lie to me. I'm a tech guy. I just checked the activity center. It says these apps were opened so long ago. And she starts bawling, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just was concerned about you, and I was concerned on who you're talking to. And my wife, she's very shy, and she would never do something like that unless God told her to, or she was directed by head office. She's not that type of person. She doesn't like that risk, and she knows I'm pretty like witty with this stuff. I'll catch some stuff like this, because I already caught a lot of their lies already that was going on in Korea. And yeah, I caught her in it. And I lost so much trust after that from my wife. Like, it was really hard to gain. And I don't think trust was fully ever gained back. Because it's not like I was talking to another woman or anything like that. I was just talking to ex-members. Actually, I was talking to you at that time. I was talking to you. Yeah, you, Great Light Studios, Michelle, Adam, Edgar. So she probably saw all that. So you guys are on the naughty list, right?
Well, you know what?
So that happened to me. So
I was
they
curious what
are
I was
spies.
saying that you read.
Oh, what she read?
Yeah.
Just like, screw this church. Cult. No. But yeah, it was very difficult after that to gain trust back. And I came to realize later, just like veering and seeing the phone, she's still talking to the church and stuff about me. Especially when we left, like when I was about to fully leave the church last year. Like, we already moved back to Colorado, stepped down from the position, everything like that. We were keeping home worship here because we live so far from the church. And I told my wife, they didn't answer my questions in Korea. I can't do this anymore. I will no longer give my tithes or keep a single worship until they can answer these questions. She's like, okay, well, talk to head office again. So I do. I send them my questions once again to head office, why they lied to me about like the Father's Bible, why they couldn't answer any of the questions, so on and so forth. And Quantity Mellon's like, give me a week. So I give her a week, no response. I texted her, no response. So I tried calling her, and it says she saw that I called her. But at this time, I just pulled up to my house, and it was late too. It was late, and tell my wife like, yeah, I just got home. I'm sitting in the like my parking spot. She wouldn't answer me, but they call my wife, and then she comes down to the car and sits with me, and she's like, "Don't be recording this. You can't record this." And I confront him on everything, and at this point, I say, "I'm never coming back to this church. You guys lie. You couldn't answer my questions," and I was mad. I was yelling at head office. All this. And I said, stop talking to my wife. I called you. I asked the questions to you. You answer me. You don't involve my wife. I'm trying to keep her out of this because I'm not trying to affect her faith at this point. And anyways, after this, it goes downhill. About a week later, it's funny. I start seeing I'm getting blocked by all these like former members because you can see on your text messages. And so then I reach out to my overseer.
So
Eddie,
you were getting blocked from members or from former members?
Members.
Okay, members.
Regular,
okay.
Yep. They weren't ever talking to me, but now they're blocking me. I'm like, this is weird. Because at this time, I'm not reaching out to any like current members saying, get the heck out of this cult, or anything like that. So I text Eddie and I said, why are you acting like the Jehovah's Witnesses? Are you telling people to block me? Is it you or head office? And he wouldn't respond. So I tried calling him. I saw that he saw that I called him, but he wouldn't pick up. My wife literally comes down to the vehicle again. This is like 2 weeks later. They called my wife again, and I blow up on the overseer and his wife. I said this. He's like, we've only ever been nice to you. We loved you guys so much. We didn't tell anyone to block you. And so I go through that spill, and I get mad again. I said, stop this. I asked you the question. I called you to answer it with you, and now you're going to have to hear it. My wife's going to have to hear everything I say to you right now in the car. And I just blew up on him. Everything they said to me, to my friend Quincy, and the things he did to me. And he's like, oh, whatever. And yeah, after all this plays out, my wife is noticing. And I think head office is texting her, probably overseers are texting her, like, we need to like separate. Like, he's about to blow. He's like a loose cannon, which I was. Like, they pushed the limit. They crossed the line. And I wasn't going to stop at this point. I'm like, okay, I'm going to find a way to speak out and help counter everything they're doing. And yeah, so they called my wife then, and then they called again. And then she got her own bank account. She wouldn't do any wifely duties really anymore, barely wanted to pay for bills. Like, it was very difficult for her to want to help with any bills at all. Like, angry almost about it. And it was just, I knew it was coming. I knew they were in her ear. So with my story and kind of like, I guess like the ending of it, it's getting closer to the end. I tell Eddie, I try to call Eddie and text him or his wife to get a response saying, I'm about to do an interview on Adam's channel, and I want to leave your guys' names out of it. Like, I'm still going to do my interview no matter what, but I was hoping they could give an apology for everything they've done to me and everything like that in writing and verbally. And I said I wouldn't mention their names. So he calls me on a fake number, and I go outside our condo room where I always sit and talk to just anybody, my friends. My wife never comes out. I'm always regular, normal tone. Eddie calls me on a fake number, says, I don't consent to being recorded. I'm like, anyways, I'm in a one-party consent state, so whatever, yep. Dude, same as him. But I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, I won't talk to you unless your wife's out here with you. So I know I'm not being recorded. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And we just went back and forth on this. And he's like, nope, not unless your wife's here. And then it was so funny because my wife's never come out anytime I've ever been talking to anybody. The one time my wife ever comes out was when I was on the phone with Eddie, because I think his wife called her to tell her to get out there. And I was like, no, go back inside. This is between me and the overseers. Go back inside. So she leaves.
Yeah, and you know for a fact that she doesn't want to do this stuff, and they're making her. And she's.
I know.
Yeah, she's doing this because
she doesn't like what I'm doing. Obviously, she doesn't like that. Yeah. Obviously, I'm against the church and stuff, but. Yeah, they're making her do stuff that's, I think, is very uncomfortable for her. Because I know her. She's so timid. So they put her in a lot of messed up situations, and they strained our relationship. They're the ones that led to her leaving. And yeah, one day I'm gone, and my mom says, "Hey, I tried texting your wife. She didn't respond. I tried texting her. I realize I'm blocked. The color of the text message changed. I go home and it's cleared out. The place is cleared out. Um, and I haven't talked to her since. So if you say this group is, and I think it's because of her green card status and everything like that. And they did some more messed up stuff as well when she was leaving. Kind of maybe like a little blackmail they try to pull. But I'm not scared of them, and it's just sad to me. And I honestly feel bad for my wife because it is a church that strained it. I knew it wasn't going to work out, and now that I was free of the church, I want to travel. I want to hang out, I want to do fun stuff, but she can't. She's locked in, she can't go travel and enjoy God's given creation that he made for us. So yeah, that was kind of the end of my stuff, but Anthony, you have any question on that? Or I would like to understand kind of a little bit about how it ended with you guys a little bit.
Yeah, I'll get into that. But one thing I noticed with you when you talked about the financial stuff, they tried to set that up with me too, where we would have one bank account and she would own and operate. She was like, "I'll take care of the electric bill. and I'll pay all of our bills, and then I'll give you an allowance for how much you can spend for your lunch." If you go out, or I'll cook you a meal. And really, like, I wouldn't have access to money unless like it went
Isn't it crazy?
through
Yeah.
her. And so I'm like, okay, like, like let's try this out. Like, I think it was like a week in, I was like, this ain't working. I was like, I want more food at lunch. Like $10 in New York City is gonna get you nothing at all. I'm like,
I want McDonald's every day.
now.
This
I
is
want to
my
add
freedom.
cheese. I can't add
I
cheese.
want to add cheese. I want to get that double cheeseburger. All right,
I can't
with
afford
the
a
bacon.
sauce. So it was like, no. So what I ended up doing, what I thought was fair, and was I took our incomes, our two different numbers, and let's just say, and I think this was the actual breakdown. If she had 30% of the income, I had 70% of the income as a whole. And then we looked at our mutual bills, like rent, electric, if we had a car. I think the car stuff I actually covered all by myself. But in those like mutual bills, I would pay 70% of it. She'd pay 30%. So like if the rent was like 2,000, I'd pay like 1,400. She'd pay 600. If the cell phone was 100, I'd pay 70. She paid. So it was broken down in ratio to our income. And then for all our individual expenses, I could, cover it myself, and she could cover hers herself. So like if I had to buy a new suit, I had my money for it. If she wanted to buy, so it was divided in that way. But whenever she wanted something, like there were times that I need an iPad for preaching. Okay, I'll get you an iPad. Oh, I need an Apple Watch for the gospel. Oh, okay, I'll get you. And this is, years and years ago, where it was more newer stuff. But yeah, no, like there was never a time where like it felt too heavy on one direction. She was, much better at saving, than I was. But, I would say that whenever we had to do some sort of mission, like she wanted to go preach abroad, or if I wanted to go on a preaching mission, like it was always, we had money for whatever we needed to do. But I didn't like the fact that like I had to explain everything to her. Like,
Yeah.
how am I going to
Same.
explain to her, like, I had credit card debt, or that I'm paying off individually, or if I work and I have to pay for something for work and do an expense report, like, if I
And they
have,
didn't even, and this is what irritated me as well, because a lot of the time it was less stressful and easier for me to just handle the stuff I needed to than her to be a part of it, because teaching her all this and her dealing with it just kind of really threw me off. And I did not like that at all. And I never let it happen, actually. I just controlled.
yeah.
Honestly,
So, I mean, I tried to let that, be that way, and it just wasn't, it wasn't good. It was
Wasn't
like
feasible.
the thing was that you give an inch to take a mile sort of situation, and I found that a lot in the relationship. Like, I remember hearing a story about when she went to go visit up in a deacon and deaconess who lived in the church, and he was ironing his shirt, and she's like, Deacon, like, why are you ironing? This is before we got married. She said, why are you ironing your shirt? Like, shouldn't deaconess be doing this for you? And he's like, no, it's not like that here. And then like cut to, when we're married, it would be like I'm ironing my shirt, and she'd always be like, "Can you iron this skirt?" Okay,
Yeah,
I'll help. So like, that's kind of like the American way. It's not like so gender role. Like, we help
yeah.
out with, all that sort of stuff. As much as we can. But
There's no
she,
conformity within the culture of Western society.
yeah,
We in America, where we live in a Western society, who were born and raised with customs that, by the way, are some customs can or can't be they can be moral or immoral. But I mean, I would say for the most part, we probably grew up having customs that were not sinful, that were
hmm
totally fine. They're not against the Bible. However, when the Korean comes over and you arrange to him, no, I know that you grew up like this. I know it's not sinful, or even though you're not going against the Bible, but we're living in the new age. We need to follow the heavenly culture, which is Korea. So take your shoes off, darn it, when you go inside, and you should start eating your
oh
use your
yeah.
chopsticks. And
I mean,
yeah, I
you know
mean,
what?
it's just like they take control. It's like a little Korea in the house, and like there's no conformity. They do not like conforming to societal norms here.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain things that like I felt was okay for compromise.
For
But
sure, yeah,
then there were certain things that I was much more rigid about, and I think that what ends up happening, like I said, with the inch, like it was kind of like a, a control, sort of push and pull. I'm very like relaxed as a person. I'm very like go with the flow. Um, you know, typically like I'm also very um I'm by the book for a lot of things, but it's kind of like I am like I'm not too loosey goosey with like life, but I'm also not going to be extremely rigid. Like I know that things can bend, so
yeah,
when it comes to us working together, I think that she was trying to put herself in that kind of like I am the one in charge of the relationship, and I would uh I would allow it, and then once I felt like she's gone too far, I would react. Like I'm
yeah,
it's like a light switch for me. It's either like I'm extremely patient until I'm not. And
yeah,
there were times, I'd say probably like two times in the relationship where I completely like broke, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done with you, and I'm leaving. And I thankfully work in like the hotel industry, so I was able to just get like a free room and like camp out for a little bit and cool off.
yeah. I had a
And
camp out. Yeah, me too. I had some camp outs. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's
yeah,
hard,
I mean,
and
like it was good and bad. Like I guess it was also like the hotel life also got me the ability to move around as much as I was doing within the church, because it's an easy skill to translate into other locations. Like as long as I was
yeah,
in a major city, it was easy to do. But no, so yeah, I'd say that was sort of one of the things. But I feel like with her, I also caught her going through my stuff when I was having kind of a low moment of like faith, where you could kind of tell I was much more irritated, and like because I had like highs and lows during my time there. There were
yeah,
times where I felt you know very zealous, very strong, and then there were times where um I just felt like worn out. And whenever like I kind of had like one of those like, I don't know, like I don't want to say rebellious, but like a kind of a um I was having like a little bit of a struggle in the church. Maybe there was some things I didn't think were fair or correct. There was a moment where I was like kind of frustrated, and I caught her one night going through my phone to see like if there was something outside, like, and
Outside
she,
church information, who you're talking
oh,
to? Are you
no,
looking stuff up online or?
I don't really know what she was looking for, but I did catch her like in my phone. I woke up and I saw her like going through it. I'm like, what are you doing? Like
Dude,
half awake.
isn't that annoying? Like, oh my gosh, like I never in a million years thought I would need to go on my wife's phone, especially a Korean. Like, I'm honestly not expecting them to cheat on me, to be
Never.
honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
No, yeah.
so like, and to me, that's the only reason I would feel like I would ever need to go through a partner's phone. That's like the only reason ever I would think about doing that. But I never had the need to do that. But it's always opposite. And yeah, my as just like happened to you, my wife spied on my phone as well, to see who I was talking to. And what's your opinion? Do you think the church? Do you think this was on her own, or because of your
Mommy,
doubts? Do you
yes, that
think
was her. I mean,
okay?
at least that's my
You didn't think there was
I
no
could
outside
also see
influence?
her
Okay.
having like conversations with what I would call the K Town crew, where like, maybe in their conversations, like, oh, I've noticed he's been doing that. Oh, sister, you should go see his messages, or you go in his phone.
Yeah.
But like this is kind of like earlier. I think it was like one of my first iPhones that I had.
Okay.
Uh and it was still like the sound it did, krr, krr, like the
Yeah,
sound that it
yeah.
would make when you're scrolling.
Yeah.
So like that happened when I was in bed, and like we didn't have like a huge plate. She was like across the same room as me, and I just hear like the sound of that. I'm like,
Purr, purr.
what the
Some
heck?
purring. Purr. Awesome.
And
Um,
there it is, the glow of the screen, like, yeah,
yep.
but
Dead giveaway. Yeah, so Anthony, after we kind of gone through all of this, the arranged marriages, I mean, everything we've gone through with the church and after leaving, and how did it end for you? Like, how was it ending for you? Because I know obviously you're and your ex-wife, you guys got a divorce, which is so common in the world, Mission Side Church of Fraud. So how did it end for you?
so there was a day where I finally decided not to go back to the church. So like I think I had mentioned, at the very end of my time in the church, I was living right next to the church in Maryland, and I started to work in Virginia and go to the church in Virginia. So Tuesday, my ex-wife, my wife at the time, didn't work in Virginia yet, and she was still working in Maryland. So Tuesday for third day service, we would keep it in different locations. She would go to Maryland, I'd be in Virginia by my job. And when I went to that church and she'd go to hers, and one day, like, I just sat outside the church in my car, and I debated. And this happened probably like every single time for like a month. Every single time I'd sit outside in my car,
So
just
hard.
like, like I'd get there like, early, and I just sit there with my hands on the wheel, just like debating myself. And every time I would just let go and go inside over and over. And then this one day, I was just like, I can't, like, I'm not going to do it. I won't do it. And I, you know, drive off. And I was so scared I was going to get in a car accident. But anyway, she found out about that. She asked me about that when I got home. And then I'm like, yeah, because for a while I kept on telling her, I'm like, listen, I don't believe in this. I don't want to go to the church anymore. but I'm going to go for you. Like, I'm only going to keep going to make you happy. And she's like, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm like, but I'm going to tell you something. That's not going to last forever. And she's like, well, just keep coming to make me happy then. Just like do it for that reason. If no other reason, just do it for that reason. And I'm like, okay. And then that was the time I'm like, listen, like I told you it wasn't going to be sustainable. Like, I'm not going to go back. And then she's like, okay, well, a lot of people, they have different religions, different beliefs. And I think it's okay that like, maybe we can still stay together. I'm like, okay, I didn't know what your reaction would be, but that's good. Like, let's see what this is like. And she would still report on me. She would still like monitor me. She wanted me to live a certain way. When she was like, well, what did you do today? We're talking about like, what's it called? Like, a Saturday. Like I went to the park, I took a walk and stuff. And she kind
Went
of like,
clubbing. Just kidding. Just
she would kind of like, make me feel like, I'm living a life for nothing. It just was such a weird thing. I just felt so like, and she's like, well, and I don't want you to drink. You can't have that in my house and you can't do this. And, so I'm like, okay, so it just felt like I was being punished and I was still in the church. Like I had to live by the church's rules and surround myself with the whole thing was just kind of, it was just very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very difficult to keep on with that. And like, I ended up like letting her know. It was, probably one of the biggest blizzards of the year, and she was stuck in the church doing an education. And I was like, all right, today's the day. I can't control it. I can't help it. I'm like, I need to get space. I need to be able to not feel like I'm in the church when I'm not in the church. And I just grabbed some stuff and I left and I called her. I listen, I need to let you know, like I'm leaving. Um, you know, I just feel like this isn't going to be able to work. And like we were in touch and we were having conversation. We were going to be moving in together to a new apartment in Virginia. And the next thing I knew, she removed her name from the lease and I had to do the whole thing all over again. But, um, you know, but then she wanted to stay together. She really did, for a little bit. Um, when we had a discussion, she's like, okay, well, if you want to separate, you should help me out financially. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking like through the law and all that other stuff, probably, I would probably have to. So I came up with something that I felt like was, um, fair. We spoke about it. I'm like, listen, we've moved around a lot. We got a lot of debt. I'll take on all that debt. It will be mine. Your car is almost paid for. You just finished that, but I'll pay your car insurance for a year. I'll pay for your phone for a year. I'll pay for, I'll take the debt. You take the savings. Let's just walk away from this. I'll pay your health insurance for a year. I'll pay this for a year. And we came up with kind of like something that felt like fair. And it was going to hit me hard for a year. But after that, like it was agreed upon, we put it into the paperwork. She refused to sign it for a while. Like she kept on like she was showing up to my apartment um without notice, and it was like it was frustrating to me. But also like it broke my heart too. That's why it was so frustrating is that like despite me not wanting anything to do with the church and realizing what it was, I still care for this person. And the fact that I'd see her crying, the fact that I'd see her like almost like begging to be together, the fact that she's like so vulnerable in these moments, like for me, it just like it broke my heart to see and to know that like I'm making choices that are causing her to feel this way.
Yeah.
but
I know what you mean.
and like we knew each other, like whether or not like we were together because we were in love with each other, it's a whole different topic because it really wasn't like built on that. And that was clear when she kept on reporting me to the church,
Yeah.
when things like I would say to her in confidence would end up in the ears of the overseer.
Yeah.
I just knew that like I wasn't her number one, and the number one for both of us was the church, and we came somewhere down the list, but um when we didn't have that in common anymore, and she still had that alliance, and it wasn't going to work, and I didn't like how much pain it caused her because she's innocent in this whole thing. Like
Yeah.
she really like going back, like I wish I could tell her like I try to like message her as a happy birthday on her birthday and things like that, but she's completely like stopped
Yeah.
communicating. She only reached out to me when she did some text documents, but besides that, because also from what I understand, it looks really bad for the Korean culture of having there's a divorced woman. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
It doesn't look good. Yeah, and I felt bad too for that.
and it kind of like she deserves more than this. She's smart. She's like strong, capable person, and really has so much like potential in life and for happiness and to you know just like an incredible person. Mean to me sometimes, yes, but overall like a very like an amazing person, and I just feel really bad about the life that she's living. But even that's part aside, that like she was caught in this kind of crossfire between
Yeah.
me realizing I was being deceived by the church, and honestly, she just deserves like happiness and like fulfillment in life. And I feel bad. I feel like I've gone through like a journey, and there's a lot of times like I miss having her in my life, but um
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things that maybe one day, and I unfortunately doubt it. I think that she's also so strong-willed that she won't even give um logic and truth a chance. Like I
Yeah.
don't think that she's even. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's
No.
that's kind of where like it ended. I just had to stand firm, and for me, I always would give in for her. Like whenever she like pleaded with me, whenever we'd had like every single time, I would just be like, yes, like, okay, like, I want to make you happy. I don't want to see you cry. I want to like, and this time I had to, like, it was so difficult to have to be firm and say no. And anyway, I think one thing like that helped me jump into speaking out, because I didn't want to do that. Like, I didn't want to speak out against the church at that point, because I'm like, if I do, she might try to take me to court and go for like half my pay, or like alimony sort of thing. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But once she stopped like making progress a sign, I'm like, okay, I just have to make her not want to be with me. And like, Jordan Hadfield, how's it going? I hopped on, I had my interviews, and um anyway, it was I think that kind of encouraged her to uh, sign the papers and move on from there. And once that was done, like when we signed the papers and we had to meet up and get them stamped, very different feel, very different, like very cold. But I'm wishing her the best. But
Yeah.
that part
I
was
feel the same.
messy.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's hard because I mean, when I look outside the church, inside the church, if I was a faithful and I stayed in, I was keeping the faith in that belief. I think we could have made it work. To be honest with you. Um, However, I'm not a guy. I couldn't live in a life of lies. I couldn't live in it anymore. And I knew when I left, this would probably be the outcome of it. Even from the early times, even from the first conception of a doubt in my head, I knew the consequences, that everything would be ripped from me. Um, and yeah, I think I'll say ex-wife now, just because. I mean, I think she's a great girl. Like, I just feel like, yeah, she was caught in the crossfires, like you said. And when you leave the church, it's two different lives, and you look at them in one way now, and then they're going to look at you in one way, because the church has already set the narrative of people like me and you that leave the church. We can't go to heaven anyways. We're not working for the gospel. We can't be saved. And it gets harder. And I felt so bad because I wanted to separate from myself from the church as far as I could. So we moved back up to the mountains, and my wife hated it here, dude. I just saw she was miserable. She has no friends up here. She was just keeping home worship the whole time. And yeah, it was sad. And I knew this wasn't going to work out. She's miserable. She doesn't like to hike or ski or any of that stuff. And so this was hard. But then I also was thinking, why, when I would tell my wife, I'll take her to the church. This was even when I was speaking out online. I'm like, hey, like, I'll take you to the church. Like, if you want to go to the church on Saturday and hang out, I'll let you do that. You know what I mean? Even though it's an hour and a half drive or more, I'm fine taking you there if that's what you want. Like, I'm not going to go, but I'm fine taking you there. I'm fine with you having this faith. But she wouldn't even go. And I was wondering if it was just because the church wanted to keep tabs on me at all times or something, because I know she was keeping tabs on me. And it's really hard to say, but it got to a point where there was such undeniable evidence about the church spreading lies about me, with text messages and audio recordings I received from Oklahoma, in different parts, saying that I joined Daniel Park's church, and spreading rumors and these lies about me that were just straight up defamation. And I thought my wife would want to listen to this. And I literally broke down crying, like on the ground crying, asking her, please, like, just let me have my side. And she's like, no, you have your faith, I have mine. But I'm like, they're lying about me. Like this is hurtful. Like, she wouldn't ever take my side no matter what. And she would never hear me out. And at that point, that's when I'm like, I want a divorce. But we didn't even get to do paperwork or anything like that. Even to this point, she's just gone, left. I don't even know where she is. So I know what you mean. It's a difficult thing. But I wanted to ask you a quick question. Let's say you and your ex-wife met outside of the church. Do you think it would have ever worked out even then?
No,
No.
I don't
Like,
think so.
even if she wasn't.
I think that the whole union was through and for the church, and if the pastor that day said a different name, it would have been a different wife. That's just
Exactly. Same with them. They could be.
yeah,
They
yeah.
could have been
Yours
put
was
together with
kind of
anybody.
like that one. It
Yeah,
was
box her up, ship her out. Yep. Exactly. How would you say statistically, when we're thinking about the church statistically, and I've seen it many of times, and I know you have, and when we look at people that were in arranged marriages, what would you say statistically? And just, of course, we don't have actual statistics. This is going to be opinion based on what we've seen. What percentage wise would you say of people that have been in arranged marriages have ended in a divorce?
so. I mean, one thing regarding marriage is I also have seen people in relationships or marriages come into the church, and the
They end as well.
church breaks them up.
Yeah.
And I remember this one brother where like he was married, joined the church, and really not long afterward, like I'd say within like a few months, like
Wow.
we were getting his bags from his place while his wife was there, and they went through a divorce because of like the whole because I mean, think about the time that you have to spend at the church. There's very few people who could have a spouse outside the church who's okay with it. And
Especially when you want to travel. Like if they wanted
yeah,
to stay boxed in their little city and stay there forever, maybe you can make it work if you agree with their beliefs. But I'm an adventurer. I got to get out there. Yeah.
there was this one sister who had kids with this uh now, like, he was a deacon at one point. They were in the church together. He left the church, but he doesn't speak out against it. He's just kind of like, he'll come for like the family day barbecue, or things like that. He'll show up, but you know she is so restricted with how much she can do at the church. So people in the church kind of look at her in different kinds of lenses. Some people say, wow, she's, faithful, but she can't do as much for the gospel because of this situation. But other people is like, well, she's not really here very often. How much faith is she's not like a true gospel worker. So, it's really hard to have that and keep a balance. So either you're completely neglecting your spouse at home, and I don't know what kind, like, different things for different people, but I think, that's a very, like, either you're in the gospel as a gospel worker and you're neglecting your partner, or you're made to feel like, a lay member, like, you, I don't think you're going to be 144,000. You're not really doing enough.
Yeah.
You're
It
not
limits
here. You're
you for
not with
sure.
us in the battle as much, because they're splitting their time. Um, so I think outside marriages are very difficult to hold. And I think a lot of separations have occurred because of it. On another note, though, like in the church with these arranged marriages, there are a lot of times where it's either done for like green card purposes sometimes, but and besides that not being the right reason to marry somebody, but also I'd say because somebody in charge um just wants like that, play matchmaker almost, like
Yeah.
they want to punish people by withholding marriage from them, or raise somebody up in a way by pairing them up. And these
Yeah.
are sometimes the oddest marriages, like you'll
They
find,
are.
like just like mismatches left and right. And at one point in Maryland, because like some members would see like less faithful members getting married, they would get jealous because they're giving more and more and more, and then this person who's barely there is getting paired up and married.
And they don't let you date. You can't go
Yeah,
and
you
find your
can't
own
you can't
wife.
date.
You'll get punished.
Yeah, and then you can't. I remember as a uh, a member who just joined, and knowing no sexual immorality, you can't see. Anyway, um, I had asked the question about you know self love. Yeah, as a gay,
Yeah.
like kind of an embarrassing question for but like, well, what's on your mind at that time? Like it's sin. You're being sinful, so no. So it's like, okay, you can't do anything. Like you really can't do anything at all. Like there's
Yeah.
no and I'm
It's
not
not
saying
healthy. I don't think
that's not
actually.
the purpose of marriage overall, but like I'd
Yeah.
say that there's you know that's, I think, harmful biologically, to be in those
It is. I
situations.
mean, yeah. I mean,
You're
even
I
I'll
was
be
in
open. Yeah, my
yeah.
with my last 6 months of my relationship, when I left the church, I mean, there's no wifely duties, as I would say,
Oh,
as
I
I would
thought
put
you
it.
meant like she wasn't like vacuuming or cooking you like lunch. Okay, gotcha.
No, yeah, yeah, and that's what I mean, and that's not normal,
No, yeah,
for a
well,
marriage, and again, marriage is not all about that for sure, but it's weird, being in a relationship, somebody that won't hug you, kiss you, no marital duties or anything like that, and yeah, it's kind of sad, and everything you brought up. I mean, it's true. They just throw people together. Sometimes the oddest couples, and um, a lot of the time marriages just can't work out, and there's always these weird things you see as well. Most overseers, especially if they're American, they're in an arranged marriage to a Korean. Not all the
mhm.
time, but so many are in arranged marriages to a Korean, and I think it's to keep tabs on them because they speak the language, they have direct communication with the headquarters. But at the same time, with these overseers, how many overseers have we seen that have gone through like their third divorce and third arranged marriages? We can just name some names. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of them. Is there any that you know that have been through multiple arranged marriages? There's actually one I want to mention. Elder Hector, I think he was in California at that time. He's since left the church. He was in obviously his first arranged marriage didn't work, and then they put him in another arranged marriage. And this is when me and my wife went to Denver because he was getting arranged to a Korean deaconess this time, and they're like, yeah, he's here for a special mission. We knew what it was. So yeah,
Hmm.
their last relationship didn't work. He got arranged to this Korean. He gets sent to like New York area, East Coast area. That one fails. And then he just steps down and left. He's done. So he went through two. So for a marriage system that is supposedly put together by God, there is an exceptional amount of people that have divorces, especially within the leadership. And it makes sense because the God that put you together is the same God that also went through a divorce. So yeah, I don't think this God they believe in is the best marriage maker when she can't even keep a divorce together. Unless they're trying to fulfill some prophecy, since God got a divorce, we just all get divorces as well. But it's there's so
A
many
made
of
in
them.
her
There's
image,
so
right?
many divorces. Yeah, made in her image. Yeah, what do you have to say about that? And
No,
just all
I mean,
these.
I've seen a lot of
It's
members.
unbiblical too to get married again and again like that. I mean,
You know what? Yeah, and that's one of the things is you can see like the stark difference because like the Bible does clearly speak against divorce. So,
yes,
there's that. And then, then God takes on the flesh and does the thing that God hates so much. And
yeah,
then, you know, also then arranges these marriages and then condones or pushes divorce. Like, so you can see that this isn't the same God as the one in the Bible because
no,
the
it's
God in the Bible
different.
does not like divorce, but this one seems to be almost instigating divorce
Yeah,
by,
both their
one,
gods, both their
uh,
gods like it.
both. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this one seems to be pushing for separations. Like, I don't think it's ever the objective. When they're pairing people, they're not like, oh, this is going to fail. But the thing is, like, their God fails a lot. Their God fails in the prophecies, their God fails in their predictions, and for their arranged marriages. If they're pairing people to grow them, sometimes these arranged marriages kill them. Well, and I say by kill them, I'm speaking like they leave
Faith.
that faith. Like, I'm using their terms. Like, obviously they
Yeah,
find freedom, but they find life outside. But in that church, it kind of like pushes them toward like having lows of their life and in their faith and things like that. So, I've seen and heard quite a bit of divorce, especially with the mispairings of people. Uh, sometimes they'll say like, if you're choosing your spouse because of looks, then it's doomed. You know, uh, but that's the thing is like, if you follow who they tell you to get married to, like I've seen, and I really hate to bring this up because, I know she's been through quite a bit already. She's also left, but she was in an arranged marriage and then that person had left and then they married her to somebody else and then he left and, she was a missionary and, I'm wishing because she's out now and I'm really wishing her a happy
yeah,
life. So good, good on her. But then there was an elder whose wife cheated, and some people they have sexual immorality, as they call it, and be booted. But I think she was high enough position to be protected from that, so she's still in. And I think she may now be married to somebody else, and they quickly married him. And I think from what I hear, I don't know, like, allegedly, Daniel Lee's daughter also was married to a leader, and she left the church. And
Yeah, I think uh, uh, David, Elder David in
yeah. So
Las Vegas, and they moved. Yeah.
um, they split up. Then there, like, it's just like there's so many examples of what I've seen. There's been ones where they've paired up people for the green card, and they end up battling it out. Like there's this one couple in Maryland where they really got into like fights, and like I think it got like it escalated, and like there was a kid that was there already from the woman from before.
Mm,
Um and the thing is too, like there was this one member who, because there's always the winner and the loser in
yeah.
divorce that they pair. There's always the one who they see as the, well, we have to coddle this one, and then the other one, like they have to be the black sheep.
Throw them away.
They have to be the, like, we have to find a problem and blame one person. It can't be our mismatch. It has to be, oh, this one did, like, fell to evil. So they knock one down and raise one up. And they do it so quietly, when there's like some of these separations. From what I heard is that people were just wondering where I was when, that was kind of it. Like there was no conversation. It was just like, um, it had changed. Like, there she was just going to church. And no one really knew what happened to me. But I think, of course, this stuff happens. There was this one brother who wanted to get married. He finally did get married, and he paired him up with like a woman with like several kids, like barely there at the church. She would drop off her kids and then like go on a date with another man
Oh my
and
gosh,
use the church as like daycare. And they're like, where is this? And
man.
call him up. You need to pick up, your kids. And he's like, they're not my kids. Like, like I barely know this woman.
Yeah.
So, and then they blamed him at the end. They ended up
Yeah.
blaming him
Typical.
for their divorce. And like, I'm not going to, marry him to anybody because, we gave him somebody and he wanted the divorce so quick. They say, well, obviously he did. And when when
Yeah.
that sister had left, it was, oh, we're so sorry we mistreated you. Oh, you know, uh, it was her. And like, I mean, obviously they didn't take too much blame, but it was during the "I'm sorry, please forgive me" movement. So
Perfect
it,
timing.
yeah. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've seen quite a bit.
Yeah. It's sad. I mean, I'm hoping one time, at least sometime, we can get like a whole group of the ex-members that were in arranged marriages and were
Mhm.
divorced, and just so we can show the World Mission Side Church of God that this is a statistical problem with inside of your guys' organization, and um, they can't get behind it. Many times, I think even in the Ronan Farrow interview with Pastor John Powers from about a decade ago, I think they mentioned arranged marriages. He's like, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't
I mean,
separate families.
the thing is the one that was about Rebecca.
Yeah,
She was arranged to this Korean
Korean.
guy who left, and now is remarried.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
mean, and that's the thing is like when I'll bring this up, like it's crazy for the families of the members who are in arranged marriages. My sister, like basically on my wedding day, the pastor told me, "Okay, you two, how about you go to Tampa, help open up the house church with this deacon?" Okay, sure thing, pastor. Like, we'll do it. So I wanted to go because Thanksgiving was coming up. And they're like, if don't let anyone pray over the food. They didn't
Yeah.
want you to go, but they also were like, if you could preach to your family, if you could spend time with your family. So I don't even know if it was on Thanksgiving I went. It might have been like around Thanksgiving.
And by the way, they changed that again. As
Oh
long as you're
yeah,
praying in the name of Jesus, now you can. All of a sudden, now you can.
what?
So Yeah,
What?
they changed. Yeah, they change it now. You can actually, as long as they're praying in the name of Jesus for like the Thanksgiving, it's okay. You can go there and pray with them. And then they also changed another thing I heard. Again, this is just hearsay, so I'm not going to. I can't confirm this one. But just on our chats with ex-members, I guess Pastor Enoch said, if your family's going on a vacation and you want to go, it's okay to miss a Sabbath day for that. So I don't know if this is what I heard. Again, I can't confirm this, but it seems like if this is true, they're realizing they're losing so many people, that there's so many wrong things going on in the inside and people are waking up to it, that they're changing their own entire belief and doctrine. And I hope people leave, because think about that. You spent 10 years, almost a decade in the World Messiah Church of God, couldn't go on a single vacation. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, it's good. You can go on vacation now with your family. So all this other time in my life, I could have went on traveling while I was younger and stuff, and enjoying my life while still believing in this God. I would have been so furious. And again, I can't confirm or deny this just because I don't have solid evidence of it. But I will say this is kind of coming out of the works, is what I'm hearing. They're changing a lot of things on this end too.
Oh, that's crazy. So, I mean, anyway, I went there after I had just got arranged marriage, because like the whole process was so short. I didn't really even see my
Yeah.
sisters. I went there and I realized when I got off the train that I had my wedding ring on, and I got into the car and I realized, oh shoot, like I took it off, I put it in my pocket, but my
You have to hide
sister
it.
is quite the eye for jewelry. So later on at the grocery store, all I wanted to say is like, hey, I'm moving to Florida. Like, that's what I wanted to say. Like, that was my big news for the day. I was going to bring up the other thing because I couldn't bring up, I'm married and moving to Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Same. When I
she
was,
had,
before we get into that, same thing happened. I was married and my parents had no idea about it yet. I had to make up some lying excuse. Like it was my girlfriend and she's been going to the church for a while and we started to date, but we were already married. Please continue. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
kind
then
of funny you have to lie about this.
if your parents ever heard when she actually came to the States, like if that date was ever said, like, oh, I came in July, or whatever, it's like, you
Yeah.
got married in August. I-
That's why I had to tell him she's been here a while and that we were
July, the
dating for
year
a while.
before, 2 years before. Anyway,
Yeah,
so yeah,
exactly. Please
for
continue.
me, like
Sorry.
my sister was like, "Oh, I noticed you had a ring on. Like, tell me, like, tell me about it." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I got married," and she just
Lost it.
lost her breath in the grocery store. Like, like we're back,
Yeah.
and she was just, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, and I'm like, like I didn't know how to like what to do, what to say. I can't say like, I've, you know, uh,
Just met this
dating
Korean
this
girl that
person, never
speaks no
mentioned,
English.
you know what I mean? Like, I can't say anything like that. So I say, oh, I'm just helping a friend with a green card, and then I had to like eventually be like, oh no, but we're actually in love and we're actually together and da, da, da.
Uh,
Like that was like over time. But then like, I'm like, I can't, like, if she lost her breath about me, with this, like how much can I, like, is she gonna have a heart attack on Thanksgiving? She's
yeah,
gonna
for
like
sure.
fall into the cranberry sauce just but
Yeah,
no, it was yeah, so that was very strange, a very, very strange part of it.
man. Well, we're out of it now.
We are out of
Maybe,
it now, but
maybe they'll take us to court one day, but I mean, for now, we're out of it. But last quick thing, you have some text messages and audio recording. If you wanna start with that real quick, and I'll share them on the screen. You can read it out.
yeah. So I mean, like sometimes they will deny that there are uh these arranged marriages that happen.
For sure.
Um so it through the messages, like it will begin kind of in the middle. I say, I also have some info on, you know, uh
Blank.
brother on blank. Um It says encourage them, and maybe sometimes they can go there and have dinner with you. We're going back and forth because we're between topics in the text. So like, let's see. I said, he just made plans to stay in the U.S. but wants to get married. He is embarrassed to talk to you though because you offered so many times before for him to get married. He said, Yep, I won't marry him. He has a
Oh
dumb
my.
pride, and he can't marry like that either. But it's up to him. I said, uh, he was even talking about finding a woman outside of Zion, but he said he only thought of it, didn't know what you'd say. He said, I gave him Sister Blank as option. Now, this other brother is good and getting papers.
Papers as in his green card paperwork?
Exactly. So
Okay.
the first brother that the conversation is about was offered a particular sister, and he said no. So he married that sister to another person without paperwork, and now this other one is getting papers. So anyway, I said so he is worried about El Salvador because his father is getting old and his land he owns will be taken by the government if he isn't there. Meaning, like this member had land in El Salvador that if he wasn't around for, and his dad is living on, if the dad passes away, then he loses his land. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, oh, and then there was another sister, this second sister also, and she ended up married to third brother, and they are in all caps New Windsor. Anyway, I continue explaining about the land. He's like, we spoke of all of that, but didn't listen. Stubborn. So sad. He's a good brother, but didn't listen. He is venting out with other brothers, but don't speak to me. I'm like, he felt like if he married in Zion, the sister would feel like either he only married her for papers or that she had some control on him because she is the key to his papers. He says, as he was team leader, a brother blank told me all that stuff. He doesn't know. I said he had the wrong mind so many times. He said, yep, arrogant. He is a type who wants to control women. Central American men is like that. I
Oh
said,
my gosh.
not in the U.S. Haha. He said, LOL. He said, my wife's name's, she controls you. Like, I was hard to break, fought a good fight, but she won. Anyway,
But
that
it's
was
funny
the,
because I don't think he's lying when
no,
he's
like,
saying
so
she's controlling you.
he
So true. It's
yeah,
so true.
he went through and he kind of, so we had that conversation. I just wanted to point that out. Not, but basically, like one of the big key things is that he kept on trying to arrange this person for paperwork because, like, that's one clear reason why they pair the Koreans with a lot of the white members is for that reason. Now, the other thing too, actually, at my ex wife was telling me this one story about, and it goes down to a bit of a racism. That there was a pairing with a black deacon and a Korean, and he's very faithful, and in Korea that is very looked down upon.
Yeah.
Like they're actually like I overt racism from Korea a lot of the
Yeah.
times, in especially like the old school mindset.
Yep.
And she said, and when mother found out that she married a black man, she said, "Oh, what strong faith she has to do that. Like she needs like
Oh my gosh.
exceptionally strong faith in God in order to like how you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like
How
for
can you
me, like
handle that skin tone? Like, chill
yeah.
out. Oh my
So
gosh.
there's also like that aspect of things, but for For the next one, this is a audio recording that I had got my mitts on, and this one is going to be a little bit hard to understand because the person recorded is hard to understand, but it
I'll
goes
try to
into
use
a little bit. It's
editing to clarify it, but
yeah, it's this is adjacent to the topic of arrangement of marriage from the leader for the East Coast, I think parts of Canada. But I'll play right now. It's
Kind is an energetic mind. It's so happy. The new brother is walking like that. Not like sit down, and then practice, and then sit down, eat and go. 6 months ago, who will be a 140,000 then? Other people also he's a single. Then he didn't think about it. I talked to the missionary, what about marriage? No. Kingdom have very near. What can I'm not going to lose my salvation. I'm not going to lose my blessing. I want to continue on. If it's God's will, I will do that, but I don't need it. Before, when I was in the world, I thought about it. But in the truth, kingdom of heaven is the most important thing. How can I think about that way? It's so beautiful mind. Who can be a 140,000 there? Yeah, 140,000 mind is different there, right? It's unless it's brand new, brand new, right? It's a white guy. There are all so many white guys, right? How can a white guy has that kind of mind? White guy is so wild. Yeah, it's true. I saw so many white people here. I don't think so. They have no brain. But brother, sister is okay, right? But so many people come and they walk away. Mine is outside. So much worldly. Not only white people, even same the Spanish, black, same thing. Mindset is a problem, right? Yes, then when I see that, so much, I believe they will glorify Father Mother truly. Their mind so beautiful then. Even though his job is so busy, so difficult, but he always after work, he come to Zion.
So, yeah, with that audio recording, besides bashing everyone who's not Asian, he also was saying that there's this one white brother, not sit down, eat and go, not mind outside in the world. He's new, which is a key point. He's new. He said to the missionary, missionary, what about him getting married? So wait, why would the pastor talk to a missionary about a member getting married? Like, why are they having conversations about having him married? He's a single brother, not married. Like, why are they having this conversation if not to arrange?
Exactly.
And then the mindset of the new brother probably doesn't really fully understand. Said, if in his recording, he says, if God's will, fine. But my focus is on heaven. I'm not going to be focusing on, where's my wife? Who am I going to marry? He doesn't want that to be his focus on when he was in the world. He's outside the church. Yeah, my mind was on women, but now my mind's not on women. My mind's just, let me do the gospel work. That's his comment, and he was being praised at that, but I'm sure that the mind of the pastor was, let's get him married. Let's we have a white person who has some sense enough, but we have enough of a grip on him. They believe it. Can you believe it? In order enough to stay. And he's like, let's lock this one in. He's basically like, let's get him married. When he's new, he's calling him new member.
Yeah.
I've heard him say, if you study King David, you're not new. You shouldn't have any questions after that. That's what I've heard him say. If you had questions after King David Melchizedek, you're stupid. So for him, he's calling this guy new, but also saying let's talk about getting him married.
Dum-dum. Yeah. Oh man, it's just, there's so much evidence and testimonies and things like that show this church arranges marriages. And I'm not saying arranging marriages is illegal. it's not. I mean, India does it all the time. A lot of countries do it. But for Western society, this is not the norm in the Western society at all. Even in Korea, I know back in the day it used to be a norm, but nowadays in Korea it's not a norm either. And the only reason I think they arrange is because it's a form of control. It ties you into the church more, makes it harder to leave. And even, when I was in the church, I started to see the curtain getting closer, getting more and more closed when I became a leader, because given all my money to the church. And then my overseer also told me I should get snipped so I don't have kids. And
Oh,
then I'm going to arrange. Yeah. I didn't, thankfully, but he wanted me to. And then he wanted me to sell my car. And so they tie you down so good. So then you have no money. You have no transportation to leave because you're relying on your overseer's, the church's vehicle because you're an assistant. And then you have your wife. So it's not a clean escape. And I'm almost wondering how many assistants or overseers out there just want to run away, but have no financials to do so, no vehicle to do so. They're tied down with a wife. They're realizing it's better I just stick it out, hang out here, because there's no life after this. And if I do leave, I'm leaving everything I've known behind. And it's very difficult. And that's kind of what I wanted to just kind of wrap up with. And, we're not the only ones in arranged marriages. Esperanza had a terrible arranged marriage, a violent one, I would say. And I just, it just ain't right. And for them to deny it, it's terrible. Any other closing thoughts on your end, Anthony, before we end my very first interview on
oh,
Cult
look at
Audit?
that. I mean, it's a
Well, I
good
mean, I've done
topic.
I've done some obviously lives and stuff with people, but I guess this is our first interview and topic.
Yeah,
You're
the
the
arranged
first.
marriage. I would say that I think that when it comes to like the arranged marriage as a topic as a whole, if you're actively and willingly participating in it, I think that that's fine. Like if in other cultures they do it, like, and you say, yeah, I knew somebody who that was part of her culture. And she's like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, like dating is stressful. Dating is like complicated, and have somebody else arrange it, somebody else to do it, and some people are happy like that.
Yeah.
So like let that be like the life if you choose it. But I don't think it would ever be right if there were coercion. Like if your family said to you, if you don't do this, we're cutting you off. We don't want to like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's healthy. In this case, it's the manipulation. They pretend like you have a choice, meaning like they don't have a gun to your head, but
Yeah.
in a way they have something worse.
They use
Because
God.
a gunshot is, a, a moment. They're having, this is the command of God. And what happens to people who don't keep God's commandments? Yeah, you
Yeah.
go to
I
hell. And
mean,
how long? You go to hell
yeah.
forever. So, I've heard this logic from them before, because they don't tell you something straightforward like this is what it is. Like
It's never
this is
forced. It's coerced. That's what
it,
I
it,
say.
it's building blocks. Like, okay, for instance, they'll say to you, oh, the cross is an idol, something like that. And then they'll say to you, idolatry is anything that you put before God. And then they'll say, what happens to people who have idols? Oh, they go to hell. Or what happens if, and next thing you know, your child is your idol. You put your child before God. You put your job before God. So they're not saying that you're going to go to hell for, spending time with your kid. They're not saying you're going to hell for putting effort into your job, but they are telling you that you're putting it before God and you're making it an idol. And then, then that quickly links to, if I have an idol, I go to hell. I hate God. And, so it's the way that these things are built upon each other. Yes. I've heard them do it about smiling. we have to have manners. If we don't have manners, then like, how can we go to heaven? Like, heaven is not a rude place. It's a place with manners. So, smiling is a manner. So if we don't smile, then we can't go to the kingdom of heaven. Like, I've heard, step by step, you to be able to understand this. So the fact is, if God, they tell you, mother arranged this for you, do you want to do it? Basically, God's commandment is for you to get married to this person. Do you want to keep God's commandment? And it's like, what happens to people who don't keep God's commandments? You know that. You're trained on that. Like, for me, that would be, okay, like if I hear God tell me to do something and I don't do it, then that means I'm rebelling against God. I'm using my own mind. I'm being arrogant. And I'm doing all these things unworthy of the kingdom of heaven. So I can either get married or go to hell. Like,
but at the same time, brother, it's your choice, brother. It's your choice. Mother put it together. Mother thinks this is the best person for you, and she's the one you believe in. But brother, it's up to you. It's your choice. No problem.
Yeah, and so honestly, like, in a way, like the gun to the head would have been a better option. It's a because when you truly believe that this is God, you truly believe that God is controlling everything in the church. They don't say you will go to hell to say no to this marriage, but you know that you'd be rebelling against God, not doing what God commanded you to do, and that if it's they don't say it, but they built up your if this then that kind of mind, so you know exactly what they're saying, but they're not saying it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, did they
explain that? But
no, I think that was perfect. And it's the same with there's a lot of words they use. It's a lot of cult tactics that they use to manipulate people. They never tell you directly what to do. Something like, go close that door. Faith. Yeah, that's what I was about to bring up. According to your faith. I'm glad they use that in the East Coast too. What does that mean? It's a double narrative, meaning if you have faith, you stay. But if you don't, you have no faith. So it's like it puts you in that hard spot.
Faith. Yeah, and
they use it all the time, so negatively too. It used to make me so mad.
Yeah, if it were clear that what you were doing was okay, they would just say, "Yeah, no, it's no problem," because you've heard them say that. You heard them say, "Oh, that's." But when it comes to, according to your faith, like, exactly what that means. It means that
you do.
Yeah,
and it made me so mad, even from when I was new in the church. There was always a deacon that used it in such a derogatory way, like a rude way. And since then I've hated that. According to your faith, it just made me so mad. Just like, shut up. Because they don't know the situation behind it. Like, what if you had to actually leave the church? That maybe there's an event and you have to leave early, and they'll say, according to your faith, brother. But what if they don't ask you what's happening? Your mother could be dying in the hospital, or your father or something.
Oh,
but they'll just
that's
say,
just a shadow. That's just a shadow.
Yeah, it's just a shadow anyways. But I think that's good. Yeah, I think we finished everything up. I think me and Anthony tried to give some good points to all the viewers, and share a little bit about our story and let people know kind of the full picture of what goes on in the world Mississide Church of Fraud. I just love that. I love saying that. And kind of what goes on with the arranged marriages and how it's true. These things do happen. I'm not saying it's the exact same in every Zion. I think some overseers execute it differently. But at the end of the day, there are arranged marriages, and that's kind of up to you, viewers, to decide if you think that's something right to do or not. But when we're just talking freely and openly about it, at least the way they structure in the World Mississide Church of Fraud, it doesn't really work too good. And there's a lot of divorces and separations, and it really sets people back in their life. And I don't think it negatively impacts a person that leaves the church and then they get a divorce, but I think it negatively impacts like maybe the Korean person we were married to. But anyways, I'm glad everybody was able to watch this video. Please like and subscribe to Cult Audit. We're going to have some more interviews like this, especially with people like Anthony. And I appreciate you coming out, Anthony.